What's good, everyone? Coach Damien here, the Shift Method. This is going to be episode number 31 on the podcast, and this is going to be Q&A number 2. Appreciate everyone who sent out some messages and some questions for today. We got a handful of awesome questions, things about hypertrophy training, about general advanced training protocols. So we got some cool curated questions here for y'all to answer. So I'm just going to read each one, kind of give my spiel about what I think about it, and that'll be kind of summary of what we got going on today. Another got an announcement at the end of the podcast, so you want to stay tuned to the very end to listen to that. But without further ado, let's get into today's episode. So, question number 1. This one comes from Alex. Thank you for submitting a couple questions, Alex. He asks, what would you suggest works best for hypertrophy? Higher volume and reps in reserve, or lower volume and reps in reserve? So, when it comes to hypertrophy training in general, right, because there's obviously some outliers in the population that might benefit from some different training principles, but a couple of things that seem to be hallmarks if you're trying to build muscle mass, right, increase hypertrophy. Number 1 is going to be training volume. Training volume, I kind of look at as like a multiplier of the benefit of training in terms of benefiting from getting more muscle mass. So for example, you could do sets of 4 or 5 reps and do a couple of sets. And maybe if you're new to training, you'll gain some muscle mass. But there's going to come a time where, because the volume, the total workload, or as we can say it, maybe sets and reps, because it's so low, the total work is so low, there's going to come a point where you're going to need to increase that overall workload. And so while other things like training intensity and targeting each muscle group at least twice is important, among other factors that we'll talk about in another question, you do want to make sure that your volume is getting higher over time. And again, you can look at that at sets and reps. So can you benefit and build some muscle mass doing things like, sets of 5? Yeah, you can. But again, you're probably going to come to this like roadblock where you're not going to see much benefit, or you're going to have to spend an exorbitant amount of time doing those sets of 5 because the volume, when you add it up, is going to be very low. Reps in reserve is kind of like intensity. So intensity does generally need to be relatively high for most working sets. The recommendation is 0 to 4 reps in reserve for most of your working sets. So if I had a choice between high volume reps in reserve or low volume with high reps in reserve, I'm going to want the high volume, high reps in reserve. So generally at the start of your program, intensity and volume is moderate to low. And then gradually you're ramping up those two training parameters over time, along with maintaining some other principles like sleep, nutrition, range of motion, mitigating stress, etc. So if I had a choice, Alex, I'm definitely looking to raise my volume and raise my intensity or decrease my reps in reserve over the span of my training program. So that's it for number 1. Number 2, this comes from Kyle, Lone Star Strength. So he asks, what style of programming do you use for advanced trainees? And this is a great question. So, of course, it definitely depends. And that's an answer to a lot of questions, right? It depends on what's going on. Are they an athlete with specific needs? Are they just general population? Do their goals change, right? There are a lot of things going on. So I'll kind of answer this in a 2-pronged approach. I'll do general fitness and I'll do athletes. For general fitness, I actually do start doing some advanced programming in the terms of, if they're doing some conditioning work, most of it's probably been some general, lists cardio on their own, or maybe they'll do some small portions of lists with me, or maybe they'll do some supersets that get their heart rate up. But as I start getting more advanced, I'm definitely adding some more advanced style HIIT training where the intervals are very challenging for them. Example, we're on the assault bike. I'm doing something like, 20 seconds max effort, 20-second complete recovery. Could do a Tabata. Something that is going to really jack their heart rate up and be very challenging, where you probably wouldn't give someone who's relatively new or hasn't worked out in a very long time something like a Tabata or something that's very intense. Could they do it? Maybe, but the chance that they're going to feel like crap, maybe get sick, or just feel like, I don't want to come back anymore, this guy's torturing me, is probably going to be very high. So I usually err on the side of caution with HIIT training for most new trainees. That's something I like to incorporate. I do like also doing some more, I hate the term functional because it's so vague. It almost means nothing, but I'll call it more athletic/activity daily living style exercises. So I started doing a lot of unilateral training And I may have some of that again for newbies, but I really like to emphasize it where things are loaded unevenly, like, a unilateral kettlebell walking lunge, where, first couple of weeks, you're probably not doing, walking lunges with an uneven load for someone, but someone who's advanced, I can start adding a unique loading scheme for them in which one side of the body is loaded and using a unique implement like a kettlebell. I will include some plyometrics, so things like box jumps, skiers going side to side. I like to use medicine balls as well. Great way to get the heart rate up, great way to do upper body plyometrics, and provide a new fun stimulus for them. Again, can you use it with, beginner population? Absolutely. But you might have to modify them quite a bit so that way their heart rate doesn't get too jacked. They don't feel like, too crappy or whatever. And so I really like to push the envelope with their, resistance training using some upper and lower body plyometrics. Those are kind of the main things for the general population. Athletes, a little bit different. Now, of course, if I get someone like a student athlete who is like, looking to just get into sports, right? Maybe they are an athletic kid and they're kind of, they've played different sports growing up, and now they're like, hey, I'm really trying to get on like a team, or like I just got onto a team and now I need to really, advance my training so that I can keep up with my sport. If they're new, first and foremost, I'm doing kind of like a general fitness periodization program for them. And again, it's going to depend where they are in their season. Like, are they in season right now? Obviously, the training has to look different because I don't want them to be sore every day for practice or when they have a game. But overall, I'm just trying to help them get stronger and get into good condition for their sport. So it's going to be kind of a general fitness with a slight spin towards the movements of their sport, whether it's football, basketball, etc. So new athlete kind of looks like an advanced general fitness client where you're doing general strength and general conditioning. As they get more advanced and, depending on the sport, I might tweak this a little bit, but there's a few things in sports that are pretty common, right? Number one is speed. Speed kills in sport, football, basketball, baseball, you being just a hair faster than the next guy or gal on the team or again, the team that you're playing against can make all the difference. So definitely looking at the speed needs of the sport, whether it's linear, curved linear, like if you're rounding bases in baseball, do you need to run backwards fast like a defensive back in football? Do you need lateral speed like tennis and basketball? So I'm definitely looking at what are the speed or the high-end speed requirements of the sport and finding ways to increase it, work on the mechanics that make sense for the athlete's body and abilities, and try and advance that. Power is another thing. So hopefully I've taken the time to build some good strength for them and basic lifts that mimic within the sport, things like some kind of squat, hinge, push, pull, rotation, etc. Now I want them to be able to express that strength quickly, which is power. Kind of falls in the speed category for certain things. And hopefully that translates well to their speed development, doing these more power-based exercises, but definitely working on power in the resistance training, along with continuing to develop their strength, is going to be important. So that kind of separates the general population and, power and speed for the athletic population. Also for athletes, I like to incorporate some or a lot of reactive drills. Again, this depends on the sport and what it has, but, basketball being able to react to an opponent, football, same thing. So I might throw in some reactive drills to keep it fun, keep it exciting, whether that's a reactive sprint or a reactive jump or a reactive change of direction off a cone drill, whatever it may be. Having some unpredictable reactionary drills can really challenge them cognitively, but also challenge them, neuromuscularly to just get better for their sport. So those are kind of the distinctions I like to make for advanced trainees. Next one we got from James. And James, I apologize. I'm going to try and summarize the question best that you asked it. So I believe what you're asking is it better to fast or to eat to help kickstart your metabolism? So metabolism overall is kind of the summation of the processes or the chemical processes that go on in your body. You can get a somewhat accurate understanding of your metabolism doing various tests. You can go online and Google or guess your metabolism based on your age, your height, etc. The quality of muscle mass on your body and your body fat can somewhat determine it as well. So there's a lot of factors that go into it. In terms of dietary patterns and how that affects your metabolism, there's some theory where people might think about looking at like a, if I'm fasting to do cardio, right? Some people think like, oh, well, maybe it'll put you in a better fat burning stage if I'm fasted when I go to work out versus not. Or some people might say, well, no, if you eat more frequently, it's going to increase your metabolism. I would say overall, I wouldn't worry too much about how you're going to hijack or kickstart your metabolism. Do I need to eat more? Do I need to eat less? Do I need to eat more frequently, less frequently? Do I need a window, etc.? If there is a difference in metabolism on frequency or how much or how little you eat, I would say that amount that changes your metabolism is probably minimal. Meaning, like, let's say, if you eat more frequently, like let's say you eat every 3 to 4 hours, and you look at it over the span of the day, like how much more calories do you burn by eating that much more food through like the thermic effect of food? Maybe it's 15 or 20 calories extra than if you ate 3 square meals a day. Is it more? Technically, yes, but does 15 to 20 calories matter in the grand scheme of things? If maybe you have like weight loss or body composition goals, I'd say no. I would say it'd be better to like regulate the quality of your food, get in more exercise rather than worrying about packing enough food in the day to where you could eat 3 or 4 times or every 3 to 4 hours rather. So yeah, I would say if you're worried about metabolism, my man, I wouldn't stress too much about it. I would just say focus on the things like getting in good quality food, finding an eating schedule that works for you, because maybe you're someone who likes to fast. That's okay, as long as you're doing it in a healthy way and you feel like you're honoring your body. Or if you're someone who likes the traditional, breakfast, lunch, dinner, that's also cool. Really just honing in on getting good food, getting good quality food, high protein, making sure that you're getting your fruits and veggies, lean meats, all that good stuff, a lot of water, and just making sure that you're getting some training in, getting in some good exercise, and you'll reach those goals. So that would be my suggestion to you. Going back to Alex again, top tips for pure hypertrophy training. In other words, how you train to get as jacked as possible. The secret we all want to know, right, Alex? So my top tips, going back kind of to your original question, definitely making sure that over the course of your training program, that volume and intensity are prioritized. So making sure that when you start, you might be low to moderate on the volume and intensity side, but each week you're finding a way, pending that everything is going well in your program and you don't have any setbacks like getting sick or injured, etc. You're manipulating one of those variables or both of them in a moderate way to where you're gradually increasing those over time, volume and intensity through reps in reserve, RP, however you want to track it. Other things that I would focus on, if let's say we're just focusing on general hypertrophy, not a specific area, I would try to hit each body part at least twice a week. 3 would be amazing. If you could do like, if you had the time to do 6 days a week of training and you did 3 uppers and 3 lowers, you hit each body part 3 times. That's awesome. In terms of like volume quality, again, we've talked about this research wise, 10 working sets per week per muscle group. And I know that might sound low to some people, and maybe for some people it is, but what we see in the research generally is that if you can get 10 hard working sets, right, reps in reserve 0 to 4 for each muscle group per week, you should see some benefit. Maybe you can go up as high as 15 to 20. Again, 20 is kind of like the upper limit outside of outliers. But if you're getting 10 for each muscle group per week, that should be a good place to start. And then you can adjust or add more volume if needed. Some other things that you can look at, generally training a full range of motion for the most part seems to be beneficial. So making sure that you're, let's say you're doing a bicep curl, right? You're bringing all the way up, controlling the weight all the way down to your arm is straight, maintaining constant tension. You're being, for the tempo, you're being explosive on the concentric, controlled on the eccentric at least 2 seconds to where the weight is not just being taken by gravity. We want the eccentric to, actually have work done where we're not just, letting ourselves relax. We want constant tension, maintaining the muscle. So making sure our tempo and time under tension is taken into account. And then there's the other things, right? So when we're in the gym, we're training, we're breaking down the muscle, causing micro trauma, but we also want to make sure that the actual growth recovery process is taken into account. And that's going to be in three main buckets, which is going to be sleep, nutrition, and stress mitigation. So sleep varies from person to person, but I want to get 7 to 9 hours of quality, good sleep. So looking into sleep hygiene, right? Does staying on your phone too much keep you up? Are you finding a right time that works for you? Are you setting alarms that make sure they don't, make you feel tired when you wake up? Do you get exposure to sunlight when you get up? So that way it wakes you up gradually. Does caffeine maybe help you wake up a little bit better, right? Finding good practices for sleep and waking up definitely help you recover better and feel better when you wake up. Nutrition wise, generally, I would recommend if someone wants to gain muscle mass, you want to be in a caloric surplus. So hopefully you have a rough understanding. And again, you can track, or maybe if you have an understanding where you are, maybe you don't need to track because you eat pretty consistently. Understanding what your maintenance calories is, and then eating maybe 300 to 500 more, so that way you can work on actually building mass, because can you build some muscle mass if you maintain your caloric intake? Yes, but probably at a certain point, especially if you're advanced training like you, Alex, you're probably going to need to increase your caloric intake, because then your body's going to need some extra material to build muscle mass. So say you're eating, roughly 3,000 calories right now, and your weight's staying pretty consistent wherever it's at. I would recommend, of course, speak to an RD. I'm not a doctor, yada, 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 but I would recommend to increase your intake to about 3,300 to 3,500, primarily, carbohydrate and a protein. So that way you're getting a little extra protein in, carbohydrate to help support your energy needs. And that way your body has more fuel, more resources to actually now build excess muscle from what you already have. Protein wise, of course, you want that to be relatively high. Again, the 0.8 to 1.2 grams per pound of body weight seems to still be relatively resourceful, right? You definitely want to make sure not, if you're weighing 200 pounds, you definitely don't want to be eating less than 100 grams of protein. You want it to be moderate to high, so that way you're supporting your goal of being able to actually get enough resources to facilitate muscle protein synthesis. And stress mitigation, right? Stress is a good thing at times, but too much of it can also be detrimental to health and detrimental to our ability to recover. And it kind of affects the other thing, right? Stress can affect our eating, where we don't eat enough, or maybe we overeat and don't eat the foods that would have the most nutrient dense or rich environment, or maybe has less protein. And it can affect sleep, where it becomes more difficult to sleep, or we end up sleeping more than we would like to. And then we find ourselves feeling lethargic and tired. And then maybe we start contemplating skipping sessions. So I would recommend to find ways to mitigate stress. And I usually find it helpful to do things that, help reduce stress in your life. That could be engaging in social activities with friends, going out with them, spending time with loved ones or significant other, doing hobbies that interest you and that make you feel good. That could be playing video games, playing sport, reading, whatever kind of endeavor or things that you like to do hobby-wise that help reduce your stress is going to be hugely helpful. Also on the programming side, just two other things. Number one, conditioning. Doing a little bit of conditioning is not going to kill your gains. Actually might increase your work capacity, so that way your sessions can be shorter in the sense of you don't feel gassed from a set of 10 on leg press. And also just to help with some of the body composition needs, doing a little bit of cardio here and there can definitely be helpful. And also just for general fitness, to be, able to go up the stairs without feeling like you're dying. So definitely the cardiovascular aspect for your health. And the biggest thing, if you had to take one tip away from this, is just being consistent. Obviously life happens. There's going to be a day or two you might miss, but doing your best to develop discipline, develop habits to where, hey, I'm not going to feel motivated or like 100% every time I go to the gym, but I'm going to go and put in the work, check off the box today, just because this is something that is important to me and that I'm going to do. Just like brushing your teeth, just like, going to the bathroom, just like packing my lunch, just like whatever. It's just something that I'm doing today. So making sure that you have a consistent plan, you have everything in place to help you be consistent, and you develop those habits to ultimately get the job done. So those are my tips for how to maximize the jackedness. Just a comment from Elias saying that I'm handsome. Elias, well, I appreciate that, brother. You're sexy too, my man. So, just got to let you know that I've got a lot of good people talking about here. And I am going to bring you back for the second podcast. Might have to do a year in review or something like that. So stay tuned for that conversation. But to his more important question, of course, is creatine safe, and will I bloat if I take it? So creatine is a dietary supplement, and it's actually, along with caffeine, one of the most studied supplements that we have on the market, and it is very safe. A lot of times the safety concerns come up because people are concerned with kidney health. This confusion, to my understanding, and I learned this a lot from growing up and having a nephrologist, as well as getting into some of the research on kidney disease and creatine, is that when you look at some markers of kidney health, there's something called creatinine. It's an excretion that typically, if I remember correctly, comes from muscle damage. So like if you work out, et cetera, it may come up in a urinary analysis. And so if you're consuming creatine, it can then get broken down in creatinine, and it will come in excess in your urinary analysis. So you go to the doctor, let's say you've been, taking creatine for a few months, and you did a piss test for whatever reason. And they're like, whoa, your creatinine levels are much higher than I thought they would for someone with healthy kidneys. It'd be good for you to tell them that you are supplementing with creatine supplementation, or having creatine supplementation rather. And then hopefully if they're up to date in the literature, they should understand, okay, that's a normal process that occurs. The initial theory would be, well, because those numbers are elevated, something is wrong with the kidneys. Even if it's coming from the creatine, having excess creatinine must mean that it's hurting the kidneys. And that isn't necessarily true. More often than not, it's just a byproduct of the supplement and the waste product coming out in your urine. And so there's nothing really to fret about from that perspective. So otherwise healthy person, even if you have a high level of creatinine in your urine when you do a test, if you do a test, totally fine, nothing to worry about. In terms of will I bloat if I take, I'd say most people no, but there are some anecdotal reports that people say they feel like they bloat. And this could be for a couple of reasons. Number one, creatinine does load a little bit of water in your cells, specifically your muscle cells. So sometimes it can make your muscles appear larger. It's putting some extra tension in a positive way on the muscular unit itself. So it makes your muscles look bigger and get bigger. So it can have some impacts on hypertrophy and strength in a positive way, not just quote unquote water weight. Just like if you carbo loaded and you notice that maybe you look a little bit, more defined, or you gain a couple of pounds, creatine can have a somewhat similar effect. But the sensation of bloating itself, as opposed to just the visual, where it might be uncomfortable, my guess is that maybe some people increase their water consumption quite a bit on creatine. I know for some people, if you supplement creatine, you can dilute it pretty well with about 1.5 cups of water, but maybe some people mix it in with an extra 3 to 4 cups of water in like a shaker jug. And maybe that's more water than they otherwise would consume. And so maybe they're feeling more bloated from the excess water content. Or maybe it's one of those things where because people pick up a healthier habit, they decide to do extra things. So maybe you start this, new fitness routine, this new journey, right? And so you're like, I'm all in, man. I got the gym gear, I got the knee sleeves, I got the belt, I'm taking creatine, and I'm changing my entire diet. Maybe because you made all these swaps in your dietary pattern, your stomach is getting used to that process. So your water intake goes up. You're consuming more vegetables, fruits. Maybe you're trying new foods that you haven't before. Maybe it upsets your stomach for the first week or so. And that might be normal. So understanding that bloating, while anecdotally reported sometimes, I don't think it would be directly related to the creatine. I think it's more so the increase of water consumption that possibly can happen from it, / the retention. Or maybe it's because of the change in lifestyle that people might do when adopting a new healthy behavior, and creatine just kind of happens to be going for the ride there. So hope that answers your question. Creatine is a great supplement. Again, it's one of the most studied and one of the safest supplements on the market. So if you're someone who's looking to get bigger, stronger, or just have a supplement that's consistently to help you with those goals, it's definitely something that is safe and recommended. And that is it. So want to say thank y'all for tuning in to Q&A number 2. Appreciate those who sent out the questions. Really, really awesome. I'll do this again. I'll probably do this, like I said, every month or so. We'll keep this rolling since it seems like we get some good questions and some good interactions that I can give y'all for it. As always, y'all know where to find me. It's at _shift_method on Instagram and TikTok. You can head to theshiftmethod.org if you want to cop some merch or check out some services I offer. Like I mentioned in the beginning, big announcement. January 2nd, it's National Personal Trainer Awareness Day. It's also my birthday. It's also a Monday. It's a perfect thing. It's a mix of all three. Starting that day, I will be releasing what are called custom training templates through Train Heroic. Train Heroic is the program design app that I use for writing all my programs with my clients and also for working with my online clients to give them weekly updated programs. But I realized that, for time's sake and financial sake, it might not make the most sense for some people to do private online coaching. So what these templates are is they're an 8-week long template, and they're divided based on goals. Each of them is 8 weeks long. It comes with video demonstrations. You get also some video updates from me week to week, so you understand what the plan is for the week. It comes with metric tracking, so you can see what weights you used previously, estimated 1 rep max, all that good stuff, and all notes for me to kind of help you guide along the way. And it does have updates week to week to challenge you as you go through the program. The 4 training programs that are going to be offered initially starting January 2nd are going to be general fitness, weight loss, hypertrophy, and strength, specifically for squat, bench, and deadlift. So if you're interested in getting one of those training programs at an affordable rate, but with awesome programming and accountability measures through the Train Heroic app, that will be able for you to purchase on the Train Heroic marketplace. I'll be posting about this quite a bit over December. So you guys will be able to see, hey, where do I go about getting it? How do I get it? And to read more about each program in detail to find out which is the best for you. I'll have all the information available in the upcoming days. Just know that it is coming in a couple weeks. As always, thank y'all so much again. Hope y'all enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.